Go for it.
All right. Welcome, beautiful people. Besides being as stylish as this next gentleman is, Mr. Isaac Rudansky, Isaac, I actually just did some numbers on you just to check the actual stats. On Udemy, you have 178,856 students. You've had over 49,000 reviews, and in your private community, you got over 38,000 people. And we're all listening to you because you are an absolute boss at firstly at Google AdWords, and then secondly at the business of running an agency around that. So firstly, I just want to welcome you, brother. I personally also follow you for the guitar music. I'm 50-50, but firstly, let me welcome you, brother.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and it's been a great journey with the agency and with students. And you know, numbers always look fancy on paper, but it's just trucking along day by day and experiencing the same difficulties as everybody else.
Yeah, totally. I wonder if it actually, because I know a lot of the people obviously who listen to you, are looking to get started in this kind of thing. I would love to hear the story of you, how you got into this whole Google AdWords and how you picked up your first client. What made you even want to do this? Because I feel like there's probably like 10,000 other more sane ways to earn a living. And
Yeah.
somehow you were pulled towards this kind of life.
So a number of years ago, about a year and a half or so after I was married, I was trying to make a living selling my artwork. And I was an artist. I had some art festivals out in Eastern Long Island. I was drawing or painting acrylic and oil musicians and impressionistic artwork. And I enjoyed doing it. I don't know if any of the paintings were any good, but I sold a few pieces, and that's how I was trying to make a living. My wife and I at the time lived in a small one-bedroom apartment with one room that doubled as an art studio and a living room and a dining room and an office. And that was life, and it was good, and it was fun. I wasn't making much money. Even if I sold a couple paintings here and there, it wasn't enough really it didn't amount to that much. My wife had a job at the time. And then I decided I should have a website for my artwork. And at the time, I really didn't know the first thing about making a website. I remember thinking that websites were like things that could be made by just a very select few of the world's like big, smartest developers, and clueless, utterly clueless. Like, I knew how to use a laptop. I wasn't a technologically savvy person. I was resourceful. Certainly I wouldn't say I was like technologically savvy, and I was clueless. And I called a friend of mine who I knew who had a website made once, and I was like, how much money is this going to cost? And it's going to be something that I really can't afford. And then one day I was listening to an ad on the radio for a company called Squarespace. And back then, this is probably 2014, Squarespace was not nearly as popular as it is today, although they were getting there. They were getting popular. They're a website builder. And the ad promised that anybody could make a website, anyone without any experience, and I didn't believe it. But I decided to give it a shot, and I sat down in my armchair one night in my apartment. This was an armchair that I basically stole from my parents' house when I got married. I think I pulled it out of storage. And I probably spent good 10 hours, 12 hours without getting up, and I built a website for my artwork, and it was really exciting. I was like, wow. I was like, so you could make a website. I had my own domain name. It cost basically nothing because I was on a Squarespace free trial. I had pictures up. I even had a shopping cart connected to a Stripe account. It was like probably the most exciting thing I've ever felt. And then I was like, well, how the hell am I going to get people to the website? And of course, I told my parents about it, and I told some friends about it. And I was like, okay, but seriously, like, we need to get people to the website. And that question led me to discover Google AdWords, as it was called at the time, and other forms of digital advertising. But Google AdWords appealed to me primarily. One, it's because it's advertising, so there's a creativity element there. Two, it was immediate. And three, it was access to Google's search presence, which was and is unrivaled, not even close to rivaled. So the next day I probably spent, I don't know, another 10 hours, 12 hours in the same armchair, learning everything I could about Google AdWords. And I decided, in my typical, I guess, irreverent nature, that I would now charge people to teach them Google AdWords, because I spent about a night learning it, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about it. I had set up some campaigns for myself. They weren't selling, the campaigns that were running to my art website, they were not moving product, let's just say. But I felt like I understood the core ideas fundamentally well enough to teach somebody else how to set up an account effectively, how to do some research, because it's a complicated platform, and it still is a complicated platform. If anything, through the years of Google trying to simplify the platform, I think they've made it more complicated, which is great for agencies or paid search agencies or specialty agencies or whatever. And I initially set up another website called the AdWord Academy, which was really, for about 3 days, a company that was going to teach you through consulting and phone calls how to manage an AdWords account. And at some point, I think it was probably a combination of just doing research and discovering that there was actually an agency business managing AdWords accounts for people, which I don't think I understood right away. And I said, oh, this is like a business that I could probably, it's not over my head. It's not something overly complicated. Like, maybe I'll manage AdWords accounts for other people. And that's how it started back then in 2014 around. And I quickly switched it to Adventure Media from AdWord Academy, although AdWord Academy remained the domain name for a little while. And I didn't take it seriously. I always worked, I say, when I tell the story, I say I didn't take it seriously, but that gives the wrong impression. I was always working hard. So I was always working around the clock, like harder than most of the people are willing to work, because I liked the work and I felt that it was challenging, and I enjoyed being in business for myself. I enjoyed working on client accounts. I enjoyed the process of advertising our own agency and running our own campaigns and servicing clients and fielding leads. I enjoyed it all. So I was working around the clock, quite literally. And then at some point I brought in my first employee, and then we moved to an office. And then probably at the point we moved into our first office, where I started paying my first, let's say, salary to an employee, that's probably when I decided that it was serious, like that it could be a business and it could be a career. And then we branch out from just managing AdWords accounts, which is what we've done successfully. And that's the story of the start of a small little, not a big, boutique agency here in Long Island. And the courses came through all that over the years, and the students, and that definitely accelerated our growth. It opened up additional revenue streams for us. It has given me a certain level of name recognition within the industry, and all those things have been positive influences on us as a company.
Wow, brother. Can I just say that's an amazing story, and a couple of things, like, you're just this artist who's trying to make it yourself. And then, like, everybody, I always find, like, if you've been successful in an agency, you're secretly always working 80 hours to get it off the ground. And people don't realize, they go, it's so nice that you get to work from home whenever you want. You're like the only one, working late, 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, still looking at ad accounts. But there really is something beautiful to this whole thing. I wanted to ask you, because now that you've kind of, like, you've helped people, and I think there's something really magical and relatable, is like the way a lot of other people teach AdWords is really useful for either, like, an absolute beginner who's just trying to overcome the tech hurdles. And there's people who teach it really well at like 100,000 person or $100,000 and above monthly spend kind of level. But most people are just like you, where they have an idea and want to put it in front of people and see if they really want that. Now, you've got a chance to see, like, a whole bunch of agency owners and a whole bunch of questions, people from, like, freelancers just starting to, all the way up to, like, big time kind of agencies. I would love to know, just from your vantage point, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes or, like, just bad advice, things that you hear over and over and over when it comes to kind of Google AdWords?
So you're talking about in the advertising side,
Yeah.
of, like, accounts, campaigns.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake that I've seen over and over again is not running a campaign for long enough and not investing enough in it. And it's forgivable. It's a forgivable mistake because people don't have an easy time risking their own money, which is why we tend to gravitate towards larger clients when we're not, if we can, and everyone wants to, I mean, it's no mystery. Everybody wants to gravitate towards larger clients, but even still, like most of our clients, I would say, are still like really small businesses that the money is tight.
Yeah.
But we have some accounts where like it's the people that we speak to work at a large enterprise and it's not their money. Of course, they're responsible for it and we're responsible for it, but it's different emotional attitude. But I put my money where my mouth is because recently, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, I took on a non-traditional client for a few reasons. Company's called Yellow Turtle Hand Sanitizer. I thought it was a good opportunity. I thought it was a good product. These guys, the clients didn't know anything about Google AdWords, and I didn't think that they would be a good traditional client where we charge them a retainer fee. So I decided to offer them advertising, a partnership where I would run the ads, our company would run the ads on our dime. We would control all the data, we would control the account, and we would get a commission on sales. You know, it's a very traditional structure in general, but it wasn't traditional for us. It's very simple. It's a commission on sales on gross revenue in exchange for us sending traffic. And I have put my money where my mouth is. We're tracking to spend between $70,000 and $100,000 a month within the first 8 weeks of running the campaign. I am running at a loss. About 2 weeks ago, I was at a negative $12,000 or $13,000 loss, and I continue to spend every single day of my own money because I saw the opportunity. I understood that these bidding algorithms take time to calibrate. I understood that there was opportunities. We had some big orders come in, and that brought me up to, negative $2,000, $3,000. So climbing out of the hole, but still it's 6-8 weeks of really significant amount of work for a loss so far. And I'm still doing it. Like I haven't cut it. Like, and it's, one might say, well, you're just throwing good money after bad. Well, okay, well, I guess we'll see what happens over the next 5 years. I don't believe I am throwing good money after bad. I think I'm throwing good money after good. And I'm aggressive in my strategies when it comes to advertising online. It's no different than any other advertising. Like the same way you understand that taking out one billboard is not going to do anything. And when Apple buys billboards, they buy, a percentage of our country, and they know that that's what they need in order to tip the scales and to get movement in a brand campaign. It's the same thing with advertising online. Even if you're advertising, even if you're doing performance advertising, you need to invest a significant amount to get things moving. And sure, you'll have days like we'll have days where we'll spend very little and bring in big sales. But okay, like those are anomalies, and there are accounts that could spend $10, $20, $100 a day and do relatively well. And yeah, that's an anomaly. And those are usually instances that over time you figure that stuff out after you've invested and spent and worked on all these different elements of the business. But again, the short version of the answer is not investing enough money and shutting campaigns down before they've had enough time to optimize.
Yeah, I mean, you described something that I've personally experienced in advertising. I'm sure you have as well, where nobody talks about this, but in many ways, the hardest part of the game is seeing your own money go out the door and not having an immediate return and still having the confidence to stay in the game. And a lot of business owners are at a real handicap because I've experienced where they think of it as kind of like binary, either the ads work or they don't, and they don't realize, well, your funnel isn't working. Like you mentioned, the algorithm still got to calibrate. You haven't tested your offer, and we're just going to keep improving and improving and improving on all those things. And eventually it will be the other way around. So it's not just like some magic button you can flip on a switch. I wonder if you could share kind of an experience of yours where you experience that same thing where you kind of like, I compare it to like dipping one toe in the water and then you find out, oh shit, the water's cold, and you kind of pull it yourself a little too quickly. Can you share a little insight on that?
Yeah. I mean, we have clients. I remember early on in the early days, there was a client where we spent way too much too quickly. And it was a mistake. And it actually didn't cost us the client. They're not a client right now. They're not a client currently, but they were a client for a couple of years. But they were one of our really early clients where just from mistakes that we made in the account with setting budgets and bids, we spent like 10 times more within a 24-hour period than he was willing to spend, and it was not well spent money. So that's an example where like we actually as an agency screwed up, but we were transparent about it, and we got things back on track. So like it's like situations like that happen all the time. And if you're working with a client and you're developing a good relationship with a client, these are things that are regular, that they're regular conversations that you have on a consistent basis. So you're discussing budget. These are all liquid and flexible things in the context of a good client relationship. So you push a little bit too far, the client wants to withdraw, you respect the client's feedback and opinion. So like when you have that type of thing, it could be a really, when you have that type of relationship with a client, you tend to not have those situations where they get shocked by freezing cold water and then they pull back too much. And when that happens, you have to really reevaluate your underlying systems of communication, of onboarding, of strategy, of risk, like risk thresholds. Some clients, you have to like sort of feel out the client's personality. Some clients are willing and able and happy to take significant risks. Others aren't. And you have to be sensitive to the personality differences in clients and in yourself, right? I'm personally not, I'm relatively risk averse, but when I see an opportunity, I'm very aggressive. So I'm a risk averse, like I'm not day trading and things like that. I'm not growing the company that fast. I'm pretty like steady in that way. But if I have an opportunity and I'm going to advertise, I'm going to go, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all in, right? Like if I'm going to hire somebody, I'm going to try to hire the best person within our means. If I'm going to run an advertising campaign, I'm going to try to do it the best possible way. So again, within my own level of tolerance. So I guess it goes back to your question, is those situations will happen, but you learn to avoid them by learning to communicate better with clients and learning to understand yourself better, I guess.
Yeah, I would actually love to hear some just ideas for anybody listening to this, because I know actually one of the most difficult things in running an agency that nobody really knows is kind of like, at least I see as a big challenge, is calibrating clients' expectations, which is like really like an ongoing job, as you described, communication. Usually I find if you've gotten good at it, like all of us, you've had some hard learning lessons along the way where, you had a client expected one thing and you did another. And, sometimes it's actually like you far exceeded expectations, but because they didn't know that was a good benchmark to hit, they tend to pull the plug too early, or they don't respond well. I would love to know how you guys approach communication at your agency, as well as like what you guys do differently to kind of stay on top of that. Because I think in many ways, managing the client is far, far harder than managing their AdWords campaigns or any other sort of media that you run. It's managing the people and the personalities, as you mentioned.
Yeah. One of the best things you could do to increase retention and to decrease friction in the relationship is to communicate as much as possible before money has been exchanged. Once money has been exchanged, there's an underlying element of warfare, and that cannot be avoided. It's human. And that doesn't mean we have extremely good, close, friendly relationships, like family, like with some of our clients, that they've come to my apartment and held my children in their arms, but there's still an element of warfare. You're paying me for something and I'm delivering something to you. And in a good relationship, it's a mutually respectful and reciprocal relationship where both people are getting sufficient value. But there's always a degree of like expectations and management and what exactly I'm getting for this money. And then a lot of clients really are not that friendly. A lot of clients are looking to squeeze as much value and to I guess unload as much criticism and blame as possible. And that's also relatively natural. So if you communicate, let's say, a difference of opinion, or you communicate a misalignment of expectations after money has been exchanged, you're really behind the eight ball, because you're going to trigger a defense mechanism every time that conversation happens, where the client feels that I'm paying for something and I'm being shortchanged. And you don't want a client to feel that way, because it's very difficult to have a productive conversation in that context. But before money is exchanged, when you're talking about your agency in the prospecting stage, if you're very clear with, we have calls every month. We don't do SEO. We will get back to your emails within 24 hours or 48 hours or within 10 minutes, whatever your structure is. We will assign 2 people to your account. I personally will not be involved in the day-to-day. You'll have a project manager who will be overseeing the team, but not involved in the day-to-day. You'll get reports at this interval. If you go above this fee, we're going to charge you. We will make mistakes. We will try to be transparent and honest about the mistakes that we make. We will not be launching new campaigns within the first 2 weeks. It's going to take more time. You will get a conversion tracking analysis within the first month. You will get a persona analysis. You will get a competitive matrix within the first 2 weeks. All these things, work on communicating them before money is exchanged. Because once money is exchanged, the conversation, whether even if the words are the same, is going to be fundamentally different. So that's what I found. And I found that when you communicate these things before money is exchanged, first of all, you look better, because most people don't. Most people don't have the tough conversations before money is exchanged. And clients and prospects like that. They like to feel that they're having an honest conversation. And I have gotten that specific feedback over and over again, specifically. That's like, wow, like it's a real conversation. You guys really seem to understand your process. You respect your own time. You understand profit, so on and so forth. Like, it does not, when you show your prospects that you have a respect for your own profit, your own margins, your own time, your own professionalism, that's the type of team they want to work with. Those are the same type of people they want managing their money. So it might seem like a person's naturally non-confrontational, like most people. Like, you don't want to be confrontational and you want the business. So you'll be a pushover. And obviously you have to understand, if it's a big enough deal, you become a pushover. Like you know, if it's a deal that's a huge deal for you, you just do it. Whatever they need you to do, you do. Yeah. Period. No discussion. But still, at the same time, you have to figure out how to then still communicate your expertise and professionalism and your process. And just having a process is going to will go a long way. Having a structure, having a framework, having a process, these are things that we still work on. I mean, we've been doing it for, I don't know, 6 years, but we're still working on it. Yesterday, we're working on our framework and how we discuss our framework with our clients and all these things.
Little mini shameless plug, because what you said is total gold. I actually wrote about this exact topic. I have a book coming out, and one of the things I mentioned is after money's exchange, your believability goes down. If you bring up issues after the fact, you look very reactionary. And for me, I remember experiencing this where I would get lawyers, and anybody who's worked with brick and mortar, they're notoriously like really bad at answering their phone, almost comically bad. Like, I can actually remember one lawyer getting a phone call for like a multi-million-dollar case. And then the person said, well, I don't know if I'm going to hire a lawyer. I might just do this myself. And he went, okay, well, bye. If you change your mind, call me back, and then hung up. And they're really, really bad. And I remember that they always believed, they used to have a line, they would say, I sign 100% of the cases that I want. And so they believed their like phone process was so dialed in and 100%. And I found that if you ran some ads for them and then show them that you have a really big gaping hole in the phone, they didn't believe you, because they'd say, oh, you're just bringing bad leads. You don't know what you're doing. Why didn't you bring this up before? And I remember one of the things that we used to do, like mystery shop them. I would just do a little 10-minute phone call, say I hurt my back in an accident, and they would proceed to screw the phone call up. And then I would send them a recording and just say, hey, we're going to need to work on this. And always, even though that was a difficult conversation, it was met with this kind of openness you don't get, because you're telling them the truth that nobody else has ever told them before money has been exchanged. And so when you bring this up later and say, we need to work on this, they're so much more open to it. So I can tell you from equally hard lessons that what you just said is absolute solid gold for anybody listening to this who wants to have clients and keep them happy for a long time. I know you have a hard stop, so we're running a little late on time.
We can pick this up. I'm happy to pick up it up. We can book another
Yeah, dude,
session
I
to.
can talk to you all day, every day about this stuff. So we're gonna have to at least do a part two.
Okay.
For this one, though, anybody who's listening, give them a shameless plug. Where can we learn more about you? Courses, trainings, agency, whatever you want to throw.
Sure. I always just say, just Google my name and you'll find different links. You could look up some of my courses on udemy.com, udemy.com. You could go to our website, adventureppc.com, and check out our services, our blog, our case studies, our radio show. And we also have a book coming out. Our director of client services, Patrick Gilbert, is in the process of finalizing his manuscript and working with his editor, a book about automation, machine learning as it applies to Google Ads and to all other digital platforms. And keep an eye out for that. It's called Join or Die: Automation in the Age of the Digital Revolution. And it's going to be a great book. It's going to be forwarded by David Sable, who's the former global CEO of Young and Rubicam. And I'll also forward it, but that doesn't matter to anybody. So
I love it. I love the humility. Well, it matters to me and anybody listening to this. So thank you again, brother.
Yes.
You know, I have mad love for you and your style. And thank you again for just dropping some real wisdoms on everybody listening to this. So
I appreciate it.
I won't keep you. I know you got a call. So let's make this a quick and abrupt goodbye.
Okay.
And I really look
All right, Frankie, we'll be in touch.